there, Space Cowboys. I hope you're all doing well because I am going to be reviewing Netflix's 2021 adaptation live action of Cowboy Bebop Season 1. So I'm coming into this show with kind of a unique perspective in that I have only seen a little bit of the anime. I've seen like 1 or 2 episodes, really liked it, I just didn't have enough time to get around to it, and I do intend to actually watch it now that I've watched the first season of the live action show, but I actually don't know all that much about the anime, so I kind of have a little bit of a taste of the anime. I kind of know a little bit of what it's like, but not so much that I was spoiled by the show. So I have this kind of interesting sort of middle ground take on this series where some of it's fresh to me, some of it's not so fresh, and it kind of lent me an sort of interesting viewing experience going into this first season. And so from that perspective, jumping into the show, I was kind of interested to see how I was going to feel. And ultimately, I'll kind of talk about my overall thoughts towards the end, but I am rather positive on this show, but with a few caveats. I think the main thing that, to start this off with is it's so clear that this show was trying to directly bring the feel of the anime into live action. Like, really just almost be like, let's make this anime live action. And it's not necessarily like a 1-for-1 in the sense that it's like shot for shot like Watchmen was, Zack Snyder's Watchmen, but it is very much trying to evoke that feeling. And in many cases, it does bring over a lot of the plot, the same pacing, the same style of the show, while not just like, redoing shots exactly from the anime. So it's an interesting sort of like middle ground adaptation. It really left me feeling very mixed on it in the end because in some senses, it really worked. I thought the style and feel of the show was actually a lot of fun. The angles and the camera work and just the look and visual flair and movement of the series, especially during the action sequences, were all a lot of fun. You could definitely tell a lot of care and energy and thought was put into all the look of this show. But also, it paid off in weird ways as well, where I feel like things that, like the pacing of an anime, doesn't necessarily translate super well to live action. I think the place that is most notable is the character interactions and relationships. The pacing of an anime, when it's a cartoon and a little bit more distance from reality, you can get away with things feeling a little bit more stilted or stylized in the dialogue. And in this show, when it becomes live action, the stylized and slightly off dialogue makes me just not read these characters as real people, and it feels strange in live action. It's hard to really put to words, but the dialogue just does not feel like real people would be saying it in these instances. And yes, the show is hyper stylized, and so it can kind of fit that, but the dialogue's not stylized enough to the point where it feels like it's fitting with that over-the-top tone, but it's not feeling real enough that I'm like, oh, this is like a real conversation people would have. But it's not bad. It's not like it's off-putting dialogue. It's just like, it's in that uncanny valley sort of thing. And like the best way to describe it is the dialogue feels like an uncanny valley sort of thing. Now, what makes it work more than it probably should, to be honest, is the acting work here. John Cho leads all these actors, but all of them are absolutely fantastic. I think they do such a good job where the dialogue fails, of making us feel that these characters feel for each other. I think Jack and Spike specifically, their interplay between each other, while it doesn't necessarily always come out perfectly in the dialogue, I feel the actors' chemistry. And I think that is a strong benefit to all the actors on the show. I think they did a fantastic job. I think most especially, though, Daniela Pineda, apologies if I said her name wrong, who plays Faye, is the standout of the show. John Cho, I think, brilliantly holds this series together, but she gets to ham it up and just have a lot of fun. Like, every time she's on screen, I'm just having fun. I'm like laughing at her over the topness and just her just being, bounce off the walls, like really much playing it up, and feels very much part of this hyper stylized world. And I really enjoyed her. However, where the acting falls flat to go at the other end of the spectrum is Vicious. The actor who plays Vicious was not great. He does not feel a part of this world at all. And Vicious in general feels kind of weird and off-putting in this series that's hyper stylized, and he just feels like this grounded, gritty guy. And I understand his function in the story to be like this sort of rival to Spike, but ultimately he just feels weird, and the actor also feels weird in it too. So like the character feels weird and the actor feels like kind of dour and blah and kind of boring, to be honest. Whereas I feel like the character also like needed to be like Faye, over the top and grandiose and like hamming it up, and he doesn't really do that. And ultimately I'm kind of bored anytime Vicious is on screen. I also will say, I don't even remember her name, and I apologize to Cowboy Bebop fans. I know you'll eviscerate me, but the sort of girl who's in between Vicious and Spike, the like sort of their love triangle thing going on here. She's better than from what I have seen of the anime. In the anime, I know she's just there as like a prize and damsel, and you don't get to see her all that much throughout the series. Whereas here, she's given a lot more to do, but ultimately it ultimately feels mostly superfluous, and she still feels like a damsel in distress without much agency. They do have scenes where they try to give her agency and try to, make it so that she's not just, the girl that's being fought between two guys, but ultimately they don't really make it better in any respect. And so I'm ultimately left a little bit disappointed by her character. Speaking on to the rest of the series, going into plot, I haven't seen enough of the anime to know if every single one of these episodes' plots is directly pulled from the anime, but I do know quite a few of them are. And so I'm curious if, from a fan who's watched the show, or when I eventually go and watch the anime, how much this show will feel like, oh, it's just retreading old ground. And ultimately, if it's retreading old ground, I sort of wonder, like, what's the point? What are you adding to this? But from what I could tell is the storylines that are here are really enjoyable. I had a lot of fun with a lot of them. It kind of made me feel a lot like stepping back into Firefly, for fans of that show. Joss Whedon aside, Firefly is a fantastic show, and believe me, I hear you already. I know Firefly itself was mainly inspired by Cowboy Bebop, the anime. I'm just sort of telling you, as someone who has not seen the anime and who loved Firefly, this show gave me that feeling of Firefly, of like, oh, we have this crew again off on an adventure. They're kind of rogues, but they have like a dark past that was something bigger and more nefarious or scary or bigger or larger. And I then them navigating the small smuggler world that they now inhabit. It very much had those vibes. I will say I very much liked the Firefly better, again, Joss Whedon aside, because those characters felt a little bit more grounded and it felt a little bit more complex because you had more characters going on and more dynamics going on than this show, which feels a little bit more simplistic in a lot of those senses. But again, that being said, it's based on the anime. The anime inspired Firefly, and so you can kind of say what was first, the chicken or the egg in that situation. But it did. If you do like Firefly, then this show would definitely be a good fit for you. So ultimately, at the end of the day, I liked Cowboy Bebop Live Action Season 1. This is coming, but that's from a perspective of someone who has not seen the anime, and maybe once I watch the anime, I'll look at the show and be like, there's no real point other than me getting to stare at the wonders of John Cho for a little bit longer. And so ultimately, I'm positive on the show, but it comes with an asterisk, and I'm also, even with that asterisk out of the way, I'm not glowingly positive on the series. I like it, don't love it, might go up, might go down in comparison to the anime, which I have no basis of. And so that's everything I can really say about the show. If you think you'll be interested in it, I probably would say you probably will be. If you're on the fence, I would say maybe not. But that's sort of my take on it. So I'd love to hear all your thoughts down in the comments below. Did you like Cowboy Bebop Season 1? I'd love to hear all of that. But beyond all of that, thank you so much for watching. How many times can I say all of that in a sentence? But beyond all of that, I hope that you, as always, live long and stay sexy.